Listen and subscribe to the Table of Truth on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Podcasts. Welcome, everybody, to Blerdlines. This is your man, Cam. With me, as always, is
the other Cam Pachi, cameo appearance in the flesh.
As well as
the Professor D, the wise one.
Professor D, the vampire hunter.
Josh has the night off. He'll join us next time. But we are back talking about The Last of Us TV show on HBO Max. This is one of those shows that was highly anticipated, but it also had the specter of being a quote-unquote video game show, which always comes with the connotation of it's going to suck or it's not going to be great or whatever. Last of Us, I had to do a little bit of research, but, it was released on PlayStation 3, then re-released on PlayStation 4, and it was one of the highest rated games on both. I think top 5 at the very least. But now we have a full realized live action, post-apocalyptic survival situation. First 2 episodes came out. We all watched it. And fellas, what's your guys' initial reaction? And also make sure all 3 of us have never played the game, although we know of the game and we know how big it is and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think I remember when the game was released and there was a temptation to try to play it, but I like horror films, but for some reason playing horror survivor games is just not one that I'd like to inflict on my nerves and stress myself out. So I stay away from them. But the one thing that stood out to me was that Last of Us was a part of a string of video games released on PlayStation 3 initially that had phenomenal storytelling. I mean, just narratives that were on par or better than some serial dramas and movies at the time. And so years later, the TV series, what having not played the game, knew a little bit about it, was expecting it to kind of arrive as a kind of new Walking Dead type of story. And I gotta say that the first 2 episodes kind of had a really unique feel to them. I really enjoy watching them because they really establish an eerie atmosphere from the very beginning, and that really set the tone for the story. Everything was moving fast in that first episode. I thought, they may have spent I thought there was going to be a little bit more time spent with the initial fallout and the calamity, because I enjoy seeing that a lot more than the sort of, okay, years later, they've kind of figured out how to survive. They've adapted to survive. What's really terrifying is those moments at the beginning, where people are so in shock or dumbfounded by what's going on. They can't hardly believe it, and there's no time to react, and everything is just falling apart. One of the best moments or visuals was, I thought, when they were driving down the road and then they had to back up, and you can see the camera is positioned inside the truck and you see what's going on, and then they have to reverse and go forward again because here comes a plane falling out of the sky onto the main street in the middle of all these panicking and running people, and you don't really see who's infected, who's not, what's going on, and it's just complete pandemonium.
I was actually surprised that they didn't stay in that initial the world's going to shit part, because I was I actually was shocked. I was oh shoot, that jumped quick, because I was really curious to see. I like how they kind of the nugget, and I did know about the beginning of the show, what was going to happen to Joel's daughter and stuff like that. I already knew that from the plot of the game. But I was curious. I was surprised that they didn't show more of the breakdown of society, and then kind of, even if I think maybe if there was a montage, that would have helped as well, just to kind of stretch it out a little bit and kind of show even if it was the montage of the 20 years of the different types of places society breaking down. Some parts don't shut down. Some parts are good. Some parts are whatever. I thought that would have been a little bit better. But in general, I liked how it really flipped from like, everything's fine to, oh shit.
Yeah, and they really did set it up, I thought, in that cold open with I always forget the actor's name, but he's been in quite a few. He's been a character actor for years, but where he explains the what would happen if fungus could survive in a human body, and the sort of reaction of, oh no, that can't happen, oh no, that would never happen, and oh no, and he's like, yeah, but if it does, we've lost. Everything's right, and just because of the fact that it's a possibility means that we shouldn't take it lightly. And that was in 1968, which means that his prediction, rather not prediction, but his hypothetical doesn't come true for another, in 2003, I think is when it starts to pop off.
Yeah. It's like another 40 plus years roughly.
Yeah. So even that, and in a sense, created some dread that I think, in a way, maybe doing it this with kind of jumping around or speeding it up might help with the horror. But I thought maybe something a little bit more with the sort of looming dread could have happened before we got into chaos.
Yeah. Cam?
I'm gonna disagree with both of you guys on. I don't know if you guys said it felt a bit rushed, but like,
no, not really, but just I wonder if they had spent more time with the fallout. That's kind of what more like I would have liked to seen more of that. Not that it was rushed, but wouldn't like.
Yeah. Well, the thing with that too is that this is following the game. Like, I've seen the cutscenes in the beginning for the first one, and it's really following the game with a little few changes. How you get infected, the time, what is it? The time that the game time it happened was like a certain time, and this one happens at like 2010 or something like that. So there's subtle differences, but overall, the way that this is playing out is literally playing out like the beginning of the game. And I agree to a point. It would have been nice to see more of the fallout as it went along, before we jump 20 years later, but I don't mind it in this instance. It's just one of those things that it didn't bother me because I know this is what happened in the game, and so for me that wasn't a big deal. But you're not wrong. It would have been interesting to see some character development between that. And when I'm watching this show, so let me first and foremost say, I don't like zombies movies. I don't like zombie shows. Anybody that knows me and my good friend Paul and seen this knows I hate zombies. And the fact that if they are real, we're all screwed is one of the most terrifying things to like ever come in close contact with, because I remember there was an episode where there was some zombie-like behavior in real life where people were taking bath salts and turning into these creatures that ate human flesh. And it was like,
I remember that.
Oh, if that ain't called zombie shit and no one's talking about it, I don't know what to tell you. So the fact that it revolves around zombies terrified me. However, just like Josh, I don't play Resident Evil type games. However, this one was kind of different when I did see it. I was in that mode to kind of play it, but other games came out and I kind of pushed it to the back burner. So I didn't even think about it. I saw people play it, was like, oh, it's cool. I got enough games on my catalog, my backlog. I'm never going to get to it. Now, with that said, this show comes out. I'm like, all right, let me peep. And just like a lot of video games that transition into film and TV, I'm always skeptical because they never really turn out right. Now, with this, it has made me break tradition. It has made me watch a zombie show and be into it, and it does not suck. Coming from a video game transitioning to screen and film. I think the cool thing about this too is I can't get used to getting involved with a character because they're gone like that. And if you have some familiarity with the game, you automatically knew what was going to happen soon, especially going into episode 2. You're like, it's The Last of Us with 2 people. not 3. So
bro.
that was a dead giveaway of thinking like, all right, one is this person's going to be eliminated from this tandem. So outside of that, I did love the cold intro because that fungus is a real thing, but it happens on a micro scale to certain organisms, not to humans, but that's an actual thing. And I think I was reading something about when they started the premise for this game that it was based upon a real fungi, and it just made a story behind that. So it's crazy that this is actually some real stuff. And shout out to the guy that was talking about it, because I think he's from the Mummy series. I reckon.
That's what I'm saying. I reckon I always forget the actor's name, but I recognize he was also in an arc in one of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. seasons. He played the professor that created the robots. What do they call?
Yeah, he was also in Spartacus as well in the first season.
Yeah, that's right. Right.
He's definitely one of those character actors that you see everywhere, but you always forget his name.
But I will say this: I like what I'm seeing right now. I dig it. I'm into it. I feel like it's paced okay. I love the actors in it. And I have no complaints right now with this show. I think it's pretty cool. Like, and everybody's talking about it. And the cool thing about when you find a show that everybody's onto and we're watching, quote unquote, as a family, kind of like Game of Thrones came out, we were all like talking about it. I feel like this kind of got that same vibe a little bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was the thing I was gonna say. It's getting that cultural moment that the binging seasons of kind of like got away from that when the full season just drops. It's all of the episodes. And I think usually when they do have something that comes out weekly and everyone's about it, it's kind of dope because then everyone can be out all at the same time. Kind of like when an album comes out, everyone's talking about the same album and that kind of thing. I liked it. I thought it was pretty dope. I think, was it Pedro Pascal? Diego Luna was in it. Like, there's like really dope actors in it. The casting was awesome.
Diego Luna?
Not Diego Luna, Gabriel Luna.
Gabriel Luna, sorry.
Yeah,
he's the brother.
That's Andor. That's the guy that plays Andor, right? That's his name, Diego Luna.
Yeah, Diego Luna is Andor. This is Gabriel Luna. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I was like tripping. I was like, I did not see Andor in this.
It was a great cast, sci-fi cast, because it's got a lot of sci-fi veteran actors. Anna Torv, who played Olivia Dunham in Fringe. You have our man Pedro, who's like the crown prince of nerdom right now. He's in like from Game of Thrones to Mando to Wonder Woman, which is probably one he's more ashamed of. But and then Bella Ramsey, of course, who cut her teeth playing Lyanna Mormont in Game of Thrones.
She was great.
Yeah, and Gabriel Luna, he's done, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Ghost Rider, Robbie Reyes, and was also
Ghost Rider, that's right.
Yep.
He was also the new Terminator. In Dark Fate, which was ironically a good movie, but was the last straw. And anyway, he would have been a good new Terminator. But great cast.
And also too, I would say too, the last good video game video game to another screen would be Arcane. They came out about a year and a half ago. The animated that was on Netflix. That was based off of the League of Legends stuff, which I do not play League of Legends. I would give zero fucks about that whole franchise, but I was super invested in Arcane. Arcane was super dope, done well, interesting characters, like amazing concept art and character design. And it really fleshed out a world where like you're coming in cold, you know nothing about this is from a game. Then it makes you at least peek a little bit, like, oh, maybe this game was something that I should take a look at. And I had to look it up too, but yeah, Last of Us has been re-released, I think 5 times. It's probably, like you said, it's probably gonna get a 6th release with the PS5 probably, but later on this year because of the hype from this.
Oh, it definitely will. It definitely will.
I also like how even when there's the end of the world, we still have capitalism. It's like, yo, it was like some type of haves and have-nots and the police state and all that. I was like, oh, I'm glad that survived the the apocalypse.
You know what's crazy? There was a little one of our cohorts in another chat posted that they could have been infected various ways, because I didn't, I like when every the episode ends, the next day I go to the Easter eggs that I missed, and one of them was if you listen to the radio, they talk about Jakarta in episode 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it happened like at a flower plant or something, and then like every instance where they could have been infected way earlier could have happened, but they didn't. When the daughter went over to eat cookies, she didn't eat no flour from there. There was no birthday cake. There was very instance where they could have been infected based off of flour product because it was spreading so quickly that they didn't get infected, because I think whatever happened, like the grandma, the old lady got infected because she probably ate some kind of flour dish.
Yeah.
And that happened and stuff. And it was like, damn, they were that close.
Could have ate some kind of bread. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the coincide episode 1 and 2, they both had opening sequences where it was doom, where you said in the beginning the scientist was like, if it really happens, we're all fucked. And then when the lady was like, they was like, what is the solution? She was like, bomb us.
Yeah.
She was like, you gotta kill it.
Yeah, episode 2's cold open. Again, if they keep giving me scenes like that, my complaint is null and void, because it's not really a complaint as much as a want, a wish. But
Fair.
that scene was great because it went to a moment, like I said, where that creates a dreadfulness about horror. See, horror doesn't always have to be something jumping at you or anything like that. It could be the silent moments where mortality is right in your face, and you know that it's, like you said, when they first, the way that scene was set up and that sequence was brilliant. The first they say, look through this. They take her from her lunch and she's like, I don't know what's going on, scared, afraid. And they say, look through this at this slide. No, don't tell her anything. Let her draw her own conclusion. And she's like, yo, that's fungus. And then like, that came from a human? What? That can't survive in a human? Let me see. Goes and sees, and then instantly, boom, she knows what this is. If we can't control this, this is a wrap. Like, there is no cure. There's no vaccine. Echoing what that dude said in the cold open of the first episode, which is, if this strikes us, we better be prepared to burn the whole house down, because like, when they're like, we don't even know where there's 14 people missing from the plant.
Yeah. Exactly. But I like that. Like, that's like, it was a great juxtaposition to seeing, America was in chaos and Indonesia was like, yo, we just chilling out here having a good time, eating some food. And then just that one instance, like, oh, well, looks like we got to bomb the whole joint.
But even that, where after she said it, the actress, I thought, really portrayed physically the emotion that a person who is not a sociopath or a psychopath who just gave that order would, which is like, oh my God, I just literally told him to kill this entire city.
Yep.
And not only kill everybody in the city, but myself and my family included, because I could be a carrier. Like, we just don't know, and this thing will spread like that. So those moments, to me, is what really creates the dreadful horror about stories like this. That's what I thought Fear the Walking Dead early on did better than The Walking Dead ever, which was create that atmosphere, that feeling of this is the end, and not necessarily have to see people being torn up by zombies to understand that something bad is on the horizon and we're not going to be the better for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also I remember, like, one of my friends hates zombie movies too. And it was 28 Days Later. Yeah, 28 Days Later, where the zombies running.
Yeah, dog.
And then like that's when they're like, yo, zombies running? All right, I'm out.
But see, those weren't zombies though. See, that's different. 28 Days Later, much like Last of Us, tried to do something different. Those were peak human beings who were infected by a highly contagious and highly like juiced up rabies type rage virus. So they were fully still warm bodied bipedal creatures who were just again driven by this madness virus. Like that's because they didn't really eat their victims as much as they just beat them up,
killed them basically,
crushing them with their bare hands. Like that was why 28 Days Later was a little different as a zombie. And Danny Boyle is not a zombie filmmaker or like that type of filmmaker. So, and he did the first film, and so that one was a little more nuanced, I thought. Anyway.
Well, I remember when I was like, oh, if there was really a zombie infection, I can just run because they can't run, and then they put 28 days later, these dudes running with no unlimited stamina. I was like, oh, we're fucked. So I was like, damn, this movie. I think I watched the first one, but like again, like it's a weird. Like I don't like zombie movies, but I know when I watch certain zombie movies, they freak me the hell out. So I'm just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Again, it borders on like. There was some instances in real life where people were acting like zombies, sniffing bath salt. And I was like, no one's talking about this. And I was like, okay, I got to learn.
The reaction to the COVID pandemic and like how that played out. Like now, imagine if that was a much worse virus or something like that, where you have our population is so large, and we're all like mad. We go in this mad dash, so you already know places like New York City, LA, like those places are gonna fall quick and hard. Sorry to say, because it's just gonna be too much headbanging, and that's what you saw. I like that you saw that early in Last of Us, like in that sequence, you saw that like immediately. We see that civilization is nothing more than an illusion that we've created for ourselves to make us behave. And once there's something that threatens that survival or threatens that threatens survival in general, then that illusion drops. And it's like, okay, now we're back to the apex predators that killed off the Neanderthal.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And again, you saw that in Last of Us without it being silly and over the top in the way that The Walking Dead does it over the top.
Yeah, and I think the other aspect of it, with the say for instance like the breakdown of society part, where it also reminded me of a quote that was kind of like, we can imagine the end of the world, but we can't imagine like a utopia, and how like the end of the world actually happened, and then you still had people like when they were actually in the was it Boston's like little quarantine zone, and they still had all the same trappings of what's going on now, right? There was like drug and freaking screwing people over, greed, and someone getting over on this, that those types of things were still going on after this horrific situation that's still been going on, and I think that added to the realism aspect of it as well. Like, so you have the people outside that's trying to kill you, inside that's trying to kill you. It's pretty much nowhere that's safe.
Yeah, and I think as a metaphor with you kind of look at it as in, okay, this calamitous event hit humanity and nearly took us out. We survived, rose above it, and yet we still didn't learn anything and just kept going the same way. So we survived only to continue the content ways that probably led to us being blind to something like this happening in the first place, to us not being able to imagine or see or trivialize the possibilities because it hasn't happened in our generation or the generation before that. It's, again, I always draw the comparison to the phenomenon of what happened with COVID. It's like it hasn't happened until it does.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
And I think again, to keep it on Last of Us, that's what you got. And to your point about the pacing, it made you feel that it hadn't happened until it did. And when it did happen, it was full. And the scene with his daughter, and shout out to Danny Newton Jr. What's it? Nico Parker.
Yeah. I forgot about that too.
For her limited time, but she definitely brought a presence to screen. She got a future now.
Yeah, she's good. She was good.
That moment when the soldier gets on the walkie and then he's like, yeah, but they're not dead. But then he goes to kill him. In that moment, you realize that the people who are so-called the rulers, the governors of the world knew about this thing. And they knew that when it happened, that they were going to have to cut ties very fast and very quick and to keep it under control. Because that's usually what happens. Intelligence is known by a select few before it hits the masses.
Hey, I thought you was joking about her being Danny Newton Jr. It is her actual daughter.
No, that's her daughter.
Yeah, man, she's good.
Yeah, she kind of looks like her, and I was like, wait, that is actually her daughter.
Yeah, nah, she did a good job. But you're totally right, and I think that's the thing where it's like, all these types of, it's a mirroring of what people just kind of went through with the whole COVID situation, and that kind of stuff, and just in a hyper focused way. And so, now with us going through COVID and then watching this, we're just like, oh shit.
Right. As far, I think the large majority of people to brush it off and write it off as like, oh, that's just like any other movie that features the end of the world where due to some kind of inexplicable virus or whatever, in this case, fungal bacteria, which again, as Cam pointed out, is very frightening because it's one of those things that it's science says the probability the probability is low for fungus to survive in the human body, but that doesn't mean that it's not possible. And so they carved a story out of that, and so now it's like, okay, that is how you create horror. Is like you build on the what if, the what could be, but keep it in a more dreadful way because they never said what started the fungus, where it came from, why is it that it's growing in everything, not just human bodies, but it's co-opting every piece of organic material matter on Earth, like through it's growing through stone and rock and gravel.
Yeah. And so, I like that they show the juxtaposition of when they were going in the museum and that part had dried and rotted, and it was like, oh, okay, this over here, the fungus is dead. It didn't have anything to latch onto. It's dry, whatever.
Of course, yeah.
And then when they were in the state house, when the fireflies were already killed, and one of those dudes came up, like woke up because he started to turn or whatever. He killed it, but then the fungus was in the ground and got into his hand, which alerted the rest of the hive mind, and that's how they all came into that state house. And so I like that.
That's kind of new from the game, so it's like a little different, but it works though.
Yeah, I just like how they show different instances of the disease to kind of give you a hint of like how it's either evolved or how so you get little touches of it as you're going through the show, so that you're finding out a little bit more and more. Where like and then that and with that it presents like I said, more a sense of a danger, because even in the part where they show Ellie the first time when she sees like all the infected on the ground and they're all acting as one, and you see the horror on her face, and she's like, I guess we're not going this way no more. They just everywhere.
Yeah, and she had been out in the wild and survived, and it still surprised her, and that idea. And I thought that the visual of the museum being a rotted out empty husk was a great visual metaphor of what this thing has left, how this thing has left humanity, right? As a rotted out husk. It still exists in some form, because even that rotted out building is still living through the fungus, is just living in a more recessive state.
Let me ask you this. So we can assume that Tess got bit when the clicker was chasing her, because beforehand there was no evidence on her body showing that she had gotten bit. Spoiler alert, if those hadn't seen it, that she got bitten, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to figure out, how did Ellie know that she was bitten? What was the indication based off the dialogue? Or did she see them? She didn't see the mark, and I'm just like, how did you know she was?
Nah, she didn't see it. It was more the way she was acting. That's what I picked up on. It was like
I mean, that's
kind
what
of
I'm figuring, but I'm still trying to figure out what was the clue, like the desperation.
I think it was a desperation, that sudden change of where her and Joel were on the same page, but now she seemed very, very, very determined to figure out. I think to actually get Ellie to where she's going, and I don't know. I have to watch it again. Maybe there was a different.
Well, I'm just confused because she got bit. Well, I guess she got bit on the shoulder, because it's kind of close to it. Because you get bitten in the neck or the head, she should have turned within like 2 hours, right?
Yeah,
It
something like
gives
that.
you a detailed guideline of when you should be turning and showing signs. So maybe she had like a 4-hour grace period, and
Yeah, I thought. Yeah, for
but
me, it was more just a erratic behavior. That's what, because like again,
yeah,
she was more determined to get, but like the way she was acting after they got out and she sat down, like she's like, "Yo, my legs messed up, blah 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 blah." She's already kind of looking melancholy and like, "Oh, this might be it." And then when they got to the actual state house and then she started to be more erratic, that's when I was like, "That's to me now." Because again, if you think about it, Ellie had to go through the process of if she's bit every day for 2 weeks, right? She had to stick her hand out, make sure it wasn't shaking, and then be able to count down from 10. And so she did that every day for the last 14 days. So she would be the first person to kind of know who got bit automatically, just because she's been tested for the last 2 weeks. So that's kind of like how I was like following that thread. Although I don't think, like, I think you're correct. I don't think there was one place where they show, oh, boom, she got bit, or she's wincing or anything like that. So like, I could see how you can kind of, if someone missed it, like, oh wait, she was bit, when did that happen, kind of a thing.
Yeah. I mean, it was assumed like she got bit by the clicker. That's the only time I could see that happening, because prior to them going to the museum, there was no indication of her feeling like, I mean, she was like, when you say there was like the erratic behavior, difference of opinion, she's kind of, once they picked up the child, Tess was kind of like, okay, let's see where this goes, because we can do this. And Joel was like, nah, from the get-go. His stance has been the same, but Tess was kind of still, let's just do it. We need the battery, we need the funds and stuff. But then it went to the umpteenth power, right, when they got to the museum, like, should we need to do this? And Joel was like, whoa, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's, like, I get it, but like, we're taking a huge risk here.
Yeah, and Tess was also semi-reluctant until she had reservations when she discovered that Ellie had been bitten.
Yeah.
So those reservations dropped when they got to the museum, and that's when it was kind of that's when it felt like something had changed. When she started when she was no longer kind of questioning that she wasn't infected as much as she was like, okay, I accept that. So why are you so important to them?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the museum part is when she finally believes that this little kid is like different. And then she did twist her ankle, so that was one part. And then getting to the state house was kind of like, okay, this could work. Like this, she might be able to make this shit better. And then that's when it kind of, but I think from even that part, self-sacrificing, a lot of kind of stuff, dope scene. And then also I think, again, just overall world and how they kind of showed it. I liked how that happened. And I actually liked how it's like, you're starting in Boston, you're going across country, so you get to see how the rest of the United States gets affected. And then also, I like how they did the not even Easter egg, but they kind of explained pieces of the world earlier on. Where like, hey, it's not just quarantine zones and the infected. There's slave traders. There's this. There's that.
Yeah,
like,
there's a Wild West.
Let's keep it banned, man. Joel is a child smuggler.
Well, he certainly is now. And I also like the difference in the nuance in the creatures than the typical zombie or that genre, which was, when Tess was infected, they were running past her, then that one stops and he doesn't like attack her. He walks up to her and like lack of a better phrase, kisses her, but opens his mouth so that the fungus tentacles can join with her. So it was almost
the girls like, bitch, run! Like
it was one of those things where it's like
why are you standing here?
That she was, you know what I thought for a second was that she was standing there because maybe the infection was doing something different in the presence of the stronger fungus. I don't know, because he could have ripped her apart, but he didn't. He like embraces her and like almost like, you're one of us, like come, like join, and then let's go and eat. But
tentacles came out. So I was like, bro, I'm like fighting.
Yeah, props to the effect teams, because I mean, they have the designs all the way from the game and stuff like that, but like they the squelching and the sound effects, the freaking tentacles, like all of that stuff was definitely disgusting. And it was funny because on Twitter, I think it was one of the comic book artists, and someone was like, "Yo, man, I'm eating dinner. Should I watch The Last of Us?" And then half the comments was like, "Nah, son." Other half was like, "Hey, you should."
I already knew the answer to that question. Like before episode 2, I was like, I'm gonna eat dinner in this order: dinner, let my food digest, and then I'll watch The Last of Us. I'm not foolish in that, man. I know you saw the some of the promos, the cauliflower head looking squilting thing. Like, come on,
those are clickers.
The clickers.
Nah, I'm good, man. I'm good. But I think but now, so to kind of get it more of a wrap, like, what are you guys hoping to see? Because did they say how many episodes it's going to be? I'm assuming it's HBO Max, so I'm assuming 8 to 10.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's HBO, so it's it's between 8 at most 13, but I can only see it being about between 8 to 10. I don't know that for a fact, but that's generally what HBO's serial dramas turn out.
Yeah, so I mean, I would say, what are you guys looking for? What are you guys looking for the rest of the series? Because like out the gate, 2 episodes in, dude, they punched in pretty high.
Just stick to what made the game popular story wise. Like, don't venture off too far. I mean, you might have to make some subtle changes to make certain things work outside of the video game. I get that. But like, don't deviate. If it ain't broke, why fix it? You know what I'm saying? So they've done justice to like making overall good parallels to the game and keeping the pacing tight and whatnot based on the situation. But I don't know what to expect because, again, I have not played the game completely. So whatever they're doing, what they did in these first 2 episodes, like if they leave with a whole intro or something like that every episode, giving us a little backstory. So yeah, say this. If they give a backstory in the intro, giving us some kind of like idea what was going on before all this shit happened, or right when it happened, I'm okay with that because it's kind of like a lead-in, kind of like how American Gods had this weird lead-in, but it actually made sense when you watch the whole episode. So if they do that, I'm totally with it. I'm fine with it. But so far, so good. I'm digging what I'm seeing. I like the characters that they hired to play, or the actors that play these characters. They work. I didn't know if the main character, what's his name? Pedro
Pascal.
I didn't know if he was gonna work as Joe. You know what I'm saying? So, but it works. And it's cool. I'm digging it. This is one of the few games that translated to screen and television that's worked so far. So,
yeah, same. I think we're getting a good string like we did. We got Arcane, we got The Witcher, so now we got Last of Us, and I think again it's like, and each one of them basically did the same thing: stay truthful to the game in terms of the subject matter, in terms of the plotting and that kind of thing. But it also took it seriously, so that it was actually going to be dope. And I think, like you said, casting is a big part. Getting the people that were involved in the creation of said stories was also very, very smart. And then also, like I said, just doing right by what the actual game is. And it's interesting because it's getting a lot of good and positive press. Where things like at the Halo show got like a lot of negative, which I've never seen it, so I don't know. But I'm glad that like as games that become shows start to be this strong, then you get to see a little bit more later on, because I think there's going to be a point soon where we're going to run out of comic books and everything else, and so if we're going to start doing video games, let's actually do the good stuff. D, what you got?
I forgot that they made that Halo. There was an adaptation by Halo. It was just last year.
That's how terrible it is.
I totally forgot about that, but I knew I wasn't gonna watch that. Hey, I Halo the game, and I also don't like that kind of hokey sci-fi. Only hokey sci-fi I accept is Star Wars these days. But I think much like Cam, I don't have any expectations because I don't know the game's narrative. With that, I will say that I hope that the writers are creative in that that this is an adaptation and that not every beat needs to follow the exact way that the game did. And so as long as they can create some fine-tuned continuity, that's what I'm looking forward to. Continue world building. If the cold open is where we'll get it, then that's fine. But give us the world building. Don't cheat us on that. Let us explain. I want to know how capitalism survived. I want to know how all these things survived in the midst of this near extinction event, because that's exactly what it is. It's a near extinction event. The human population can't be anywhere near what it was in 2003, 23 years later. So continuity, continue the world build, treat it as an adaptation, not necessarily a carbon copy, and just build on what they've done so far, which is introduce a world that's intriguing, that's terrifying, but that's populated with interesting characters that you kind of immediately have reason to care about.
Yeah, definitely. That's all of the aboves, all the aboves. It's like I said, good, strong start, and I'm excited to see what happens next. Thanks everybody for joining with us, Blerdlines, and we will see you guys probably at the end of the show. For Last of Us anyway, but everything else we got coming. So, peace guys.
Peace.